title of today's presentation, as you may have seen on the previous screen, is Trades Math, Galvanizing a Path for Learner Success. My name is Mark Newby, and I'm a full-time professor at the Faculty of Applied Science and Technology with Sheridan College. I'm located at the Davis campus in Brantford. You may not be aware that we were very recently renamed the Magna School of Skilled Trades. We have 3 intakes a year, and those are from all of the offerings in dual credit, post-secondary, and apprenticeship courses. In terms of trades, we cover electrical, precision machining, welding, millwright, and plumbing. And the foundational skills team is responsible for non-trade specific courses, those that deal more with soft skills. A typical learner will join Sheridan College, the Magna School of Skilled Trades, or the FAST faculty after their high school career. And what that means is they'll enter directly into a certificate or diploma program en route to attaining their final goal, which is a Red Seal endorsement or the interprovincial standard. In addition to students who've recently finished high school, we see a large number of individuals or learners with a second career focus, or perhaps those who've finished university and weren't satisfied with the job prospects that they saw in front of them. In short, it's important to call out our learner diversity and the broad spectrum of abilities that we see in the trades math classroom. As I thought about topics or places and spaces to explore at the STC for my project, I found myself reflecting on the fact that I was new and a coordinator. So I was new to really 2 roles, and there were a number of macro and micro tasks that I had to accomplish in the space. As the fog sort of lifted and the sun came out, I attempted to crystallize the bottleneck that was before me. I learned that there was no lack of study in the space of math education in North America. That wasn't a surprise, but it was a little surprising that the literature showed the majority of exploration had focused on general math education and not trades. It was about this time that I learned to expect the unexpected, and that's when coronavirus emerged. And we saw some dramatic and rapid changes in education. We saw a change from classroom teaching to online teaching, and in my mind, that necessitated a return to the 3 project pillars. I found COVID derailing because I wanted my work to be relevant into the future and not something that was historical before it was even delivered. So I continued to spend time on the 3 pillars: innovation, the contribution to student experience, and educator reflection. Having previously taught secondary, post-secondary, and apprenticeship learners, I was able to recognize that success would very likely come from learners' early exposure to any innovation that I wanted to bring to the table. And so I settled on the idea of a first semester math learner facilitated discussion. The student component of my study was purely voluntary and anonymous. What I did was to engage learners through a guided reflection. What I did is I asked them to review in their minds or reconsider how they had experienced learning math in the past. Ultimately, I scratched around with 3 main sources of information. I used 28 different articles. I'm referring to the literature. I also engaged a faculty pool with 3 instructors at the Sheridan College STC. Each had a minimum of 10 years. And finally, 65 students were surveyed. The guided reflection led me to recognize something that history had taught me as well, and that's that the trades math classroom or environment can be characterized by the existence of conflict and confusion, in which learners and instructors may ultimately come to view each other as obstacles rather than allies. Now, the fog hadn't entirely dissipated at this point, and COVID was becoming larger and larger. So, this idea of confusion is something that I want to maintain throughout this presentation. Ultimately, though, working with my students helped me realize that it would be interesting to apply a truth and reconciliation framework to the onboarding process when trade students enter the trades classroom. At this point in my work, I had a significant amount of raw data, and I wanted to work with it to at least put some organization to it as I drilled down further or mined further to see exactly how the TNR framework might best support students while onboarding. Because of my experience teaching math in the past, I entered this study with a bit of a bias. And my bias was in thinking that most trades math learners identified as math haters. And that wasn't the case, as you can see by this cartoon. Then more importantly, I learned that students typically had difficulty separating the math information from the actual learning experience. During one informal conversation, a learner remarked to me that they had math baggage, and it struck a chord with me, that statement. It brought me back to recognizing the importance of teaching a whole person, and that math learning was about a journey. And the journey didn't begin the first day they entered a Sheridan College STC math classroom. I resurveyed the class following the TNR exercise, and it wasn't surprising to hear that learners were not enjoying math online. I received a lot of comments like, I don't get it, it's much harder, it's different from the shop. But I was pleased to see that 100% of respondents appreciated the TNR framework exercise and described it with words like innovative. In addition, 77% of respondents felt a benefit from the exercise. It probably won't come as a surprise that the literature showed anxiety was likely at play here, but I was also fascinated by the fact that learners felt the math was different between the shop and the classroom. And this really suggested the importance of a learning environment. Overall, there was a rather strong correlation between anxiety and the learning environment, as well as an opportunity to share historical struggles in the math classroom. As work like this often does, it exposed several questions for continuing study. It definitely showed a correlation between environment and math learning, and it wasn't surprising that learners found there to be benefit with the TNR framework. So in addition to providing a path for deeper work, my RPT captured meaningful data, which I can continue to use as I move forward teaching in the trades math classroom. Thank you.